So iPad users rejoice because it looks like finally, iPad will no longer play second fiddle to iOS and iPhones, and it seems like we're getting some substantial upgrades with iPadOS 19 that us iPad first users have been wanting for years. Let's get into it. So I've been working on a video that talks about how I use my iPad as my main computer, but still use iPadOS and make it as Mac-like as possible by using things like Stage Manager and multitasking, the file systems, multiple instances, and just the way that I set up my UI and my home screen to give me that feeling that I'm using a desktop when I'm slapped onto the Magic Keyboard versus me feeling like I'm using a larger iOS device like a larger iPhone. And that video is coming out very soon and I highly recommend watching that. I'll link it below so you guys are aware when it does come out. But the main sentiment there is that people have always loved the hardware of the iPad, especially now in 2025 when the M4 iPad Pro is as thin as 5.1 millimeters, that tandem OLED display, the Thunderbolt port, the speakers, everything about the iPad from a hardware perspective is absolutely amazing. The thing is that a lot of people, including myself to an extent, think that iPadOS does limit what can happen on the iPad versus an actual desktop like a macOS computer. Now for me personally, I love my iPad and iPadOS, and I've gotten very good at using iPadOS and really pushing it to the limits in terms of productivity and multitasking and making it my main computer because the hardware alone is enough for me to want to and warrant the downfalls of iPadOS. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't want a better version of multitasking, a more macOS-like experience on the iPad, and it seems like that's finally coming with iPadOS 19. So one of the best selling points of the current iPad is the versatility, and that's the main reason why I continue to use the iPad as my main device, because one moment I'm using it as an ebook, the next moment it's a tablet, I'm using the Apple Pencil in Affinity Photo to make my thumbnails, I can sketch on it, handwrite, I can do some artistic things if I really wanted to, but then you add something like the Magic Keyboard, and it completely transforms the experience, giving you a more laptop-like experience when you do put it on the Magic Keyboard. The Magic Keyboard itself is an amazing piece of hardware. Yes, it's expensive at $350 for the larger model, but again, I think for the most part, depending on who you are and how you use your iPad, it's one of those accessories that you might have to bite the bullet for because the experience of the Magic Keyboard is second to none, and although there are some third-party alternatives, if you want to get the full experience, you definitely got to get the Magic Keyboard. The actual keyboard is super comfortable and clicky. They added the function row with the new version of the Magic Keyboard, and now with that aluminum finish, it makes it feel more premium, and it definitely makes it feel like a MacBook Pro, or a MacBook Air. And the only real thing that you got out of the Magic Keyboard when you did slap it on is that touchpad does become an extension of the actual display itself, so all your gesture controls are going to work a little bit closer to you, which is the way that I kind of use the Magic Keyboard. And of course, the virtual keyboard disappears because you have the physical keyboard, and then you do have that kind of circular clicker, which is different from macOS, but that's kind of what's added. The new rumor with iPadOS 19 that was released by Majin Buu and then later reported on by 9to5Mac is that we're going to be getting a new experience overall when you do slap the Magic Keyboard onto your iPad, meaning that it looks like we're finally going to get a menu bar on the top of the actual iPad when it comes to using it more Mac-like. And I think this is huge, not just from a visual and UI perspective, but also from a usability, productivity, and multitasking perspective. I've long been wanting to have a file system so I can go on the top left, tap on File to save, or go into the tools, go into View, go into an edit mode, get some more info. Some of the things you can still get when you are using iPadOS 18, but you have to take a few extra steps to get more information on whatever you're trying to do, because again, that menu bar on the top just doesn't exist. Also, for some diagnostic stuff, on the top right of macOS, you get things like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, volume, and you're able to add more by downloading different plugins, like getting some diagnostic information with Clean My Mac X. Being able to get that type of information and that type of quick kind of usability on iPad would be absolutely amazing. I know that we have Control Center and we're able to pull that down, but now having it as a dedicated and a static kind of bar on the top does make you feel like you are using a macOS-like experience on the best hardware possible, which I think is the M4 iPad Pro. So again, the idea here is that the moment you put your iPad onto the Magic Keyboard, you enter a new mode, which is going to be maybe desktop mode or laptop mode or macOS mode, and it's going to give you a different experience than using it in tablet mode when you do remove it off of that Magic Keyboard. And I'm going to be curious to see how Apple rolls this out in terms of which iPads can use it. Do you need an M series iPad? Is it only for the pros? Also, do you need the Magic Keyboard, or can you connect an external Bluetooth keyboard and trackpad and still get the same type of experience and not have to spend the $350 on a Magic Keyboard. But again, we'll see exactly what that ends up happening. I'm just happy that something is actually happening with iPadOS 19 to give it that kind of productivity boost that it really needs. Another thing that's coming automatically when you connect it to the Magic Keyboard will be the new version of Stage Manager, which we're calling Stage Manager 2.0, which is going to enhance multitasking productivity, possibly have the ability to add more windows, give you some more free-flowing stuff, also maybe adding the 3 dots on the top left, which is going to be the close, minimize, and go full screen, which is what's been on macOS computers for years now at this point. Right now with iPadOS and Stage Manager, you do have the 3 dots in the middle, which gives you some of that functionality, but it really isn't the same. And again, it does add friction because it's a multi-step process to minimize a window or move a window to another screen, versus with the 3 dots that we've known for the past few decades, that's only a one-step process. You go over there and you click on it. So being able to have that more macOS-like experience is going to be a nice thing to have. So all that is going to be amazing for iPadOS, and I think the M4 iPad Pro will truly be a laptop replacement if we do get everything that iPadOS 19 is seeming to be. Now, we've talked about all the UI differences, being more glass-like, being more visionOS-like, and that's all still going to be true in coming to most iPads, if not all of them, as well as iOS 19. But again, iOS 19 is not being left behind with this rumor that's being leaked, and it looks like iOS 19 is finally going to get a DeX-like experience. I've been hammering Apple to give us some sort of DeX-like experience for years now, especially when the iPhone 15 came out, because iPhone 15 brought USB-C, and it did allow to have USB-C peripherals, and you're able to now plug in your iPhone directly to a USB-C monitor. Now, albeit right now all it does is mirror your iPhone, you can't do anything outside of that. There are some apps that I've seen out there, I believe it's like X Infinity, that does give you some sort of kind of web browser type experience, but having a DeX-like mode with iOS 19 where you're able to then plug in your iPhone into an external display and then populate it with maybe a Stage Manager type of experience is something that a lot of people have been wanting. There's plenty of power to do this with the iPhones. Of course, RAM management is going to be a thing because iPhones are, I think, not that great with RAM management. At least my version of iOS makes my phone extremely hot when I'm doing a lot of stuff at the same time. But I'm sure Apple will fix that with iterations of iOS 19, and getting a Samsung DeX-like experience on the iPhone is something that I know is going to be extremely welcome. I mean, imagine bringing an external display like an espresso display that's a 13-inch display or 15-inch display, external keyboard, external mouse, or trackpad. All you do is you plug in your iPhone and then boom, you kind of have this Chrome OS-like Stage Manager, maybe Mac OS Lite experience to get you to be a little bit more productive with your emailing and Slack and communications and things of that nature. So all amazing things happening with iOS and iPadOS 19. And I think Apple's maybe doing this because as of right now, Apple Intelligence is a little bit of a letdown, and we don't really know how that's going to transform over time. So giving us the things that we absolutely wanted for the last few years is Apple kind of maybe coding over Apple Intelligence. But hey, I'm all for it because you can just make ChatGPT your new Siri by adding it to your action button. But let me know in the comment down below what you think. Are these changes that you would want? Changes that are warranted? Is it something that you would use on a day-to-day basis? Is a DeX-like experience on your iPhone something that you would want? Something that you would pay for? All things that I'm curious to discuss. All I know is that giving me a more productivity-focused, multitasking kind of situation with Stage Manager on the iPad is all that I want. The little cherry on top is going to be that DeX-like experience on iOS 19. And also comment down below how many times I said DeX-like or desktop-like in the comments. I'm always curious, but that'll do for this video, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end. And let me know what you think about all this, and if you want to watch more videos like this one, definitely check out one of these videos right here. But like I said, I do have a kind of how I make my iPad Pro more Mac-like video in the works, which I'm very excited to show you guys. But that'll do it, everybody. Peace.